Malia never wanted fame. She just wanted peace, a classroom, a soft life, a love that didn't need applause. But when the world finally saw her, it didn't clap. It whispered. It judged. It crowned her a symbol and waited for her to crack. Now the maid who once danced alone finds herself at the center of a storm she never asked for. Scandal, headlines, secrets, envy, and a love the world keeps trying to rewrite. This isn't just a love story anymore. It's a quiet woman's fight to be heard, without raising her voice. And as she rises, so does the pressure. Because the higher she climbs, the more they try to pull her down. This is the final part of Malia and Elijah's story. And no, it doesn't start with a kiss. It starts with a question. Can love still feel safe when the world keeps knocking at the door? Stick around, because the crown she never asked for is about to change everything. Malia never wanted to be famous. She wanted to teach children, to watch them grow, to give them the kind of gentle safety she never had. That's all. No stage, no spotlight. But sometimes the world chooses your story, even if you never asked for it. It started with a blog post. A mother who had visited Malia's Little Lights wrote a piece titled, "The Woman Who Taught My Child More Than a Classroom Ever Could." She talked about Malia's patience, her warmth, the way she knelt to eye level when a child was crying, the way her hands knew how to comfort without asking for attention. She didn't mention Elijah, not once. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about her. The post went viral within hours. Parenting forums reposted it. Celebrities quoted it. Someone on Twitter said, "The maid who danced alone is now building a generation. I'm not crying, you are." And just like that, Malia became a movement. People began showing up outside the daycare. Some with flowers, some with cameras, some with curious eyes that didn't know whether to admire her or pick her apart. Malia kept her head down. She still arrived by 6:45 a.m., swept the floor, and greeted every child by name. She still washed their cups herself, even though she had 2 assistants now. But inside, she felt the pressure rising. They were calling her a symbol. But symbols aren't allowed to have bad days. Symbols aren't allowed to cry in the staff bathroom. Symbols don't get to be human. One evening after closing time, she sat at her small desk, surrounded by glitter glue and finger paintings. Her hands were still sticky from helping a 4-year-old finish a sun-shaped collage. Elijah came by with dinner. She smiled when she saw him, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You okay?" he asked, placing the food down gently. She nodded. "Just a lot." He didn't push. He just sat beside her quietly, the way he always did when she was unraveling. "I didn't mean for the world to see me this way," she whispered. He reached for her hand. "The world didn't give you anything," he said softly. "They just finally opened their eyes." She looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the weight on her chest lifted. Because maybe, just maybe, she wasn't wearing a crown. Maybe she was the crown, and it had been hers all along. At Malia's Little Lights, the hallway still smelled of crayons and warm cereal. Children's laughter echoed off the soft yellow walls. On the surface, everything was perfect. But in the shadows, trouble was stirring. It began with a comment, just one, on a video clip showing Malia teaching a group of toddlers how to tie their shoelaces. Cute, but let's be honest. Would people care if she hadn't slept her way to a billionaire? The comment got thousands of likes. Then came a thread, then a think piece, then a podcast episode titled, "Love or Leverage? When Maid Turned Mogul Becomes a Brand." And just like that, Malia's love story was repackaged as a strategy. Inside the daycare, Malia stayed focused. She held little Sophia when she scraped her knee. She clapped when Michael wrote the letter M without help. She kept showing up. But outside, bloggers were saying Elijah funded the entire daycare. Parenting forums debated whether she had the qualifications to run a school. People dissected her silence, her smile, her past. And when a reporter showed up uninvited at pickup time and snapped photos of the kids, Malia had had enough. She stood in front of the daycare gate, calm but firm. No interviews. No cameras. These are children, not clickbait. Her voice didn't tremble. Her eyes didn't flinch. She turned and walked back in, and every parent in line clapped quietly as she passed. But the backlash still hurt. That night she sat at the edge of her bed, scrolling through hate posts she never meant to read. Let's see if she's still glowing without Elijah's wallet. From mop to miracle. Must be nice. She clicked the screen off and buried her phone in her drawer. She didn't cry, but her chest felt tight. Meanwhile, Elijah sat in a meeting with his media strategist. "We need to shut it down," the woman said. "The backlash is bleeding into your investor confidence again. Her image affects you." Elijah stared at the slide deck in silence, then said quietly, "No, we can do an interview. Reframe the narrative. I'm not here to spin love," he said. "I'm here to stand by it." He stood, ending the meeting, because to him Malia was not a liability. She was his light. The next day, he showed up at the daycare without warning, wearing jeans and a hoodie, carrying a tray of chin-chin and a thermos of hot cocoa. "I thought the staff could use a break," he said casually. The moment the parents saw him, with Malia laughing, it was captured on camera, and within hours, it was trending again. The billionaire bakes for the daycare queen. But Malia didn't smile when she saw the clip. She just sighed, because she hadn't asked for this crown. And now, it was getting heavier. Ava Daniels had been quiet for months. Too quiet. After her dramatic exit from the mansion, she vanished from the headlines. There were even whispers of a quiet engagement to another wealthy CEO. But that too had quietly crumbled. Then she returned, with curated vengeance. New hairstyle, a rebranded fashion blog, a rising podcast titled The Daniels Standard. She was sleek, elegant, brutal. And her latest episode? A bomb with Malia's name on it. She's just the maid he's parading. Today we're talking about power, how some women clean their way to it, and how the public mistakes silence for strength. Spoiler alert, it's still gold digging if you whisper while doing it. She didn't say Malia's name. She didn't have to. The episode trended within hours. Clips flooded social media. Ava, polished in her white studio, red lipstick sharp as glass. We glamorize Cinderella stories. But let's not forget, Cinderella still married up. Let's not pretend scrubbing toilets is the same as building empires. People shared it, laughed, reacted with fire emojis. And just like that, Ava was relevant again. Later that evening, Malia opened her inbox and found a message that made her hands go cold. Ava wants to pop in for a podcast segment about empowered women. Said it'll boost your school's visibility. Malia stared at it. She didn't reply. But Ava didn't wait for permission. 3 days later, she arrived unannounced, dressed in ivory, heels clicking like punctuation marks. Her assistant carried a phone on a selfie stick, filming everything. Here I am at Malia's Little Lights. A noble little space started by someone who cleaned her way into headlines. Inside the classroom, Malia was helping a child paint a sun. She looked up, froze. Ava smiled. "Don't worry, darling. I'm just here to say hi, support women and all that." They stepped into the staff room, alone. Ava leaned on the door, voice smooth as silk. "I have to admit, you surprised me. You went from invisible to viral, didn't you?" Malia said nothing, just met her eyes. Ava walked closer. "But let's be honest. You don't belong in his world. You're a phase, a lesson. One day he'll remember who he is, and you'll still be tying kids' shoelaces." Silence. Then Malia stood, calm, steady. "No," she said. "One day you'll remember who you used to be, before the world made you bitter." Ava's smile faltered for just a second, and in that second Malia added quietly, "I'm not in his world. We're building a new one, together." That clip, recorded secretly by Ava's assistant, leaked within hours. But instead of destroying Malia, it turned her into something else. A voice. A woman who didn't need to scream. A woman who didn't need to win. Because she had already grown. The sun dipped behind the clouds as Malia stepped out of the daycare, apron in hand, her chest still tight from Ava's visit. She hadn't told Elijah. Not yet. She didn't want to make it bigger than it already was. But someone else did. The video of her calm response to Ava, captured and leaked by the assistant, was now everywhere. We're building a new world. Together. The internet went mad. She ate gracefully. This is how queens speak. Whew, I felt that in my bones. Even people who once mocked her began reposting. The clip with quiet apologies in the captions. But Malia didn't see any of it. She was still on her feet, still unsure if this storm would pass or break her. He had watched the video. He had read the comments. He had seen how they analyzed every part of her response like it was a show. He didn't say anything. He just stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. Right there, in front of the gates, in front of the school. She sank into him, and for the first time in days, she let the weight fall. Her face pressed into his chest. His hand slid up to the back of her head, and he whispered, "I saw how you stood tall, but you don't have to be strong for me. Not all the time." Her arms tightened around him. They didn't speak for a long moment, until she whispered, voice trembling, "It's too much sometimes, Elijah." "I know," he said. She pulled back slightly, eyes red. "I'm scared." He wiped a tear from her cheek gently. "Then be scared. I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him, the man who had once walked past her like she was air, now, holding her like she was the ground beneath his feet. And something shifted again. Not the public, not the perception, but her belief that maybe this love wasn't a firestorm waiting to collapse. Maybe it was a shelter. And this, the way Elijah held her, was how she knew she wasn't alone anymore. It started with a letter, folded neatly, slipped into the mailbox at the daycare. No stamp, no name, just 5 printed words on white paper. "Children deserve better than you." Malia stared at it for a full minute before folding it back. Then she locked the office door, sat down, and didn't move. Outside, the children played. Inside, her hands trembled. She had handled whispers before, handled Ava, handled headlines. But something about that letter, the cold finality of it, hit a place inside her she didn't know was still soft. She stared at the tiny potted plant on her desk, the one Elijah gave her when she opened the school. Its leaves were wilting. She hadn't watered it in 3 days. She didn't even realize. Later that day, a parent pulled their child from the school. No reason, just silence and a forced smile. Another one sent a message. "We love what you're doing, but the attention makes us uncomfortable." By evening, Malia was scrubbing glitter off the floor. Alone. Her body moved, but her mind was screaming. She spilled the mop water, cut her hand picking up the bucket, and still didn't cry until she reached the bathroom, locked the door, looked into the mirror, and whispered, "Maybe they're right." She slid down against the cold tiles, pressed her hand over her mouth so no one would hear. Not the staff, not the kids, not Elijah, because love was beautiful, but humiliation was louder. And she couldn't bear to be the reason he lost respect. That night, Elijah waited outside. He didn't see her tears, but when she came out, her eyes were dull, her voice low. "Can we just not talk tonight?" He didn't ask questions. He just nodded, held the car door open, and let her sit in silence, because that's what she needed, and that's what he was learning to give her. But when they got home, she went straight to the bedroom. Didn't eat, didn't change. Didn't even take off her shoes. Elijah stood outside the door, helpless. Then he whispered through the wood, "You don't have to shine for anyone, Malia. You don't owe the world magic every day, but you'll always be enough for me." She didn't open the door, but the next morning, she watered the plant and decided not to give up. It was a Wednesday. Ordinary, until it wasn't. The bell above the daycare door jingled softly. Malia looked up from the art corner, a paintbrush in one hand, glue on her apron, and there she was, Ava Daniels, back again. Red heels, black sunglasses, lips the color of battle. She took off her shades slowly, surveying the room like she was stepping back into a museum she once critiqued. "Hello again, darling," she said smoothly. The assistants froze. One even dropped a crayon box. Malia stood, calmly. "Ava," she said. "Just that. I figured a proper visit was overdue." Ava continued, voice dripping with something too sweet to be real. "You've done so well for yourself. A little school, a little fame." Malia didn't flinch. The children watched quietly from behind a bookshelf, sensing the tension. Ava walked slowly through the daycare, eyes trailing the wall art, the playbooks, the mini library. "So domestic," she said with a smile. "It's almost cute." Malia folded her arms gently. "What do you want this time, Ava?" Ava turned, eyes narrowing. To give you a chance. A chance? To walk away. Before the world finishes what it started. Malia took a deep breath. Then she walked over to a little boy struggling to button his shirt. She knelt gently beside him and said softly, "Lift your arms, sweetheart." That's it. She helped him, smiled, then stood up. She turned to Ava, calm, steady. "I'm not scared of you," Malia said. "Not anymore. I was never trying to compete with you, Ava. This was never a game to me." Ava gave a small, smug smile, but Malia stepped closer, just enough to meet her eyes. "You throw people's pasts at them like stones, but all I did was survive mine and build something better from the pieces." Ava didn't move, didn't speak. Malia's voice didn't shake. "You can mock me. Drag my name on your podcast. Whisper whatever you like. But in this room, in this world I built, your voice doesn't matter. And I don't need the world to clap for me. I just need to keep showing up." For a moment, Ava looked shaken. Just a flicker. Then she scoffed. "This place won't last. You're not built for the pressure." Malia nodded slowly. "Maybe not. But I'm still here. Still standing." She walked to the door and held it open. And just like that, Ava was the one being dismissed. She paused in the doorway, looked back. Malia didn't say anything. She didn't need to, because that was the real wound. And Ava finally walked away, heels clicking with less conviction than before. That evening, Malia swept the floor with a calm heart. She had faced Ava, and this time she didn't shrink. Because true power doesn't come from being loved loudly. It comes from being unshaken when someone tries to make you small. It wasn't her idea. At first, Malia said no, over and over. No interviews, no cameras, no statements. But one afternoon, after Ava's second podcast went viral, after another parent withdrew their child, after a reporter ambushed her on her lunch break, Malia sat in Elijah's office, drained. He poured her tea, and said quietly, "Then say something, Malia. Not for them. For you." She didn't answer right away, but that night, lying awake beside him, she whispered, "I'm tired of being rewritten." 3 days later, she sat on a simple set. One couch, one host, one camera. No glam, no makeup team, no script, just Malia. Cream blouse, minimal jewelry, bare face. The host was kind but direct. "Why now?" Malia took a breath. "I think I spent most of my life trying not to be noticed," she began. "And then one day, the world noticed me all at once. But they didn't see me. Just a story." The host nodded. "What do you want people to know?" Malia looked straight into the camera. "That I'm not perfect. That I never meant to be anyone's fairy tale. I was a maid. I cleaned floors. I danced barefoot when I thought no one was watching. And that moment changed everything. Not because I was trying to rise, but because someone finally looked. And in that moment, I wasn't invisible." Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. "I didn't ask for fame. I asked for peace. For a life where I could teach children, build something soft and be loved gently." She looked down for a second, then added, "If that threatens anyone, then maybe it's not me they're afraid of. Maybe it's what I represent. That someone can come from nothing and still be worthy." The interview went live that evening. Within 2 hours, it hit 1 million views. By midnight, the hashtags were trending. "Daughter Malia speaks. From Maid to mentor. Thought worthy without permission." One commenter wrote, "I cried. She's every girl who was ever told to stay small." Another said, "Forget Ava. Forget the scandals. This is who she is." And across town, Elijah watched it all in silence, then pulled out another letter from his drawer. He added just 4 words at the end of it. "I see you now." It was Sunday afternoon. The sun was warm but not harsh. The breeze smelled of hibiscus and early rain. Malia wore a soft sky blue dress and no shoes, her feet aching from a long week of teaching. Elijah drove her in silence, not because something was wrong, but because some moments didn't need words. She didn't ask where they were going. She trusted him now, completely. They pulled into a quiet lot, not far from the school. What she saw first was nothing remarkable, just a patch of land, fenced, still raw, still growing. But when she stepped out of the car, she noticed the small wooden sign near the entrance gate. Little roots, big lights. A garden for Malia's children. Her breath caught. Elijah, what is this? He smiled softly. You once said the children needed more than books. They needed earth, space, color. She walked slowly into the garden. Small raised beds were already taking shape. Tomatoes, spinach, peppers. A corner for flowers. A corner for herbs. A low wooden bench shaped like a butterfly. I've been working on it with some parents, he said behind her. One of them designs community gardens. I just provided the land. Malia turned to him. Her hands touched the bench like it was glass. You built this? She whispered. He nodded. Not to impress you, he said. To honor you. You take care of so many lives. I wanted to build something that could keep growing, even on days when you feel like shrinking. Malia walked slowly to the middle of the garden. She knelt, touched the soil, smiled through sudden tears. I used to think the only thing I'd ever grow was pain, she said quietly. Elijah stepped beside her, took her hand. Then let this garden be your reminder, he whispered. You've been planting light all along. She leaned into him, not to be saved, but because this garden, this love, was rooted now. And some things, once rooted, bloom forever. The invitation came on glossy cardstock. Charity Gala for Girls in STEM. Presented by the Ava Daniels Foundation. Malia raised an eyebrow when she saw the name. Elijah, reading over her shoulder, simply said, She's trying. Malia didn't plan to attend, but the press had already whispered. Malia versus Ava face to face at the gala. And honestly, Malia was tired of the verses. The gala shimmered under chandeliers. Silk gowns, crystal glasses, flashes from paparazzi just outside the marble steps. Ava entered fashionably late. As always, silver gown, perfect waves, a presence that made necks turn. But this time, there was no fire in her eyes, no dagger in her smile. Just resolve. Elijah wasn't there. He stayed home, on purpose. I don't want you to feel like I'm shielding you, he told Malia earlier. This is your moment, not mine. So Malia walked in alone. Cream satin dress, simple braid crown, no jewelry, except the silver bracelet he gave her. People watched. The girl who once scrubbed floors had now become someone the elite couldn't ignore. Ava found her at the edge of the room, near the dessert table. I didn't think you'd come, she said. Malia smiled politely. I didn't think you'd invite me. I didn't, Ava replied. They both laughed softly. Then Ava looked out at the room. The lights, the chatter, the empty conversations wrapped in diamonds. You were right, you know, she said, voice lower now. Malia turned slightly. About what? I was bitter. A pause. I still am sometimes. Malia waited. Then Ava added, But I was never the right woman for him. I just didn't want to be forgotten. Her voice cracked for the first time. I spent so long trying to be unforgettable. I didn't notice I was becoming someone even I couldn't recognize. Malia didn't gloat. She didn't preach. She just reached forward and gently placed a chocolate tart in Ava's hand. Start with dessert, she said quietly. Sometimes sweetness helps. Ava blinked, then actually smiled. It didn't touch her lips. It touched her eyes. The next morning, Ava sat in her podcast studio. No glam team, no audience, just the mic. And her voice. She took a slow breath, then began. We were never a fairy tale. He found one somewhere else. And I wish her well. She paused. No music under it, no edits. Just truth. No hashtags. No viral sound bites. No follow-up promo. Just peace. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, Ava Daniels let go of the crown. The day started like any other. Spilled juice, shoelaces, crayons missing their wrappers. Malia wiped a child's nose with one hand while handing another. A glue stick with the other. It was loud. It was sticky. It was perfect. Elijah arrived around 4 p.m. He wore a dark green button-down, sleeves rolled up, collar loose. No suit, no headlines following him today. Just him. He watched her from the classroom door. Her soft command over the chaos. Her laughter echoing like music through finger-painted walls. And he smiled like a man who had already found everything. Mr. Elijah, the kids shouted. He knelt down, high-fived each of them. You're here, one girl said. Do you want snack? Another asked. No snacks today, he whispered, then tapped the side of his nose. I have a surprise. After circle time, Malia noticed something unusual. The children had gone quiet, too quiet, and then they parted like a sea, revealing Elijah in the center of the room, down on one knee, holding not a velvet box, but a paper ring made from colored construction paper, taped together by tiny hands. The kids clapped wildly. Malia froze. Her heart jumped. Elijah, what are you doing? He looked up at her. Calm, warm, serious in the most gentle way. I could have done this with diamonds, with cameras, with rich people applauding. But this classroom, these walls, this noise, this is your world, and I want to live in it. The children gasped as he held up the ring. Malia, he said, voice steady, will you let me grow beside you? Will you dance with me for the rest of our lives? She didn't move, didn't breathe. Then slowly, very slowly, she stepped forward, kneeled down, and whispered, eyes brimming, I thought I had to choose between being loved and being seen. But with you, I get both? She let him slip the paper ring on her finger. The children exploded with cheers. But Malia and Elijah just laughed. And in that laughter, in that classroom, they sealed a promise louder than gold ever could. There were no helicopters, no celebrity guests, no designer gowns on magazine covers. Just one simple email invitation sent to a small circle. Join us for a celebration of love. No need for gifts. Just come as you are. The ceremony was held in the garden behind Malia's little lights. Yes, that garden. The one Elijah built. The one the children helped plant. The one where peace lived. Rows of white chairs. Sunflowers in mason jars. A small speaker playing soft high-life music. No red carpets. Just green grass and sunlight. Malia wore a soft white dress. Not silk, not lace. Just honest cotton, with tiny embroidered flowers near the hem, stitched by one of the mothers from the school. Her braid was pinned low. No veil. No crown. Only a single silver bracelet on her wrist. The one she once took off during the scandal, now returned to stay. She walked barefoot down the garden aisle, hand in hand with a little girl from her class tossing petals. The children clapped. Some forgot to stay seated. No one minded. Elijah stood waiting beneath the arch, wearing a navy blue shirt and khaki pants. No tie, no stress, just his heart on display. When he saw her, he smiled so softly, it made even the flowers look shy. They didn't write long vows. Malia said, You didn't rescue me. You reminded me that I was always whole, even when the world only saw pieces. Elijah said, You didn't change my life. You gave it breath, and made every moment finally feel like truth. Then came the moment everyone held their breath for. By the power vested in... The children screamed before the officiant could finish. You may kiss the bride. Laughter erupted, and Elijah kissed her. Slow, tender, full of everything they had survived to get there. From a distance, Ava watched. She wasn't invited. But she didn't storm in, didn't cry, didn't post. She just stood at the edge of the field in a quiet gray coat, watching the two people who had learned to love without needing permission. She pulled her sunglasses down, eyes glossy, but this time with acceptance. Then she whispered, He really did love you better. And walked away, not like a villain, not like a queen. Just like someone, finally free. That night, beneath string lights and soft music, Malia and Elijah danced barefoot on the grass. Her head rested gently on his shoulder. His arms held her like he finally understood peace. They swayed, not to impress, not for tradition, but because joy demanded movement. It wasn't grand. It wasn't loud. But it was everything. Because sometimes, the best wedding is the quiet one. No one saw coming. Months passed. The headlines faded. The cameras moved on. But Malia's little lights only grew brighter. What started as one small daycare was now 2 buildings and a mobile classroom van. They called it the Light Bus. A colorful van that drove to low income neighborhoods every Saturday, filled with books, toys, chalkboards, and hope. Malia sat in the passenger seat every week, hair tied up, clipboard in hand, smile steady. The kids called her Auntie Malia the Butterfly, because she always told them, even if you start in a dark place, You're still meant to fly. She was invited to speak at women's conferences, not because of Elijah, not because of the scandal, because she knew what it meant to build something with your bare hands, while the world watched and waited for you to fail. Her speech clips were shared by activists, mothers, even celebrities. You don't have to start loud to make impact. Sometimes quiet women build empires, and yet, Malia never changed the way she moved. She still swept the floor sometimes, still sat on the carpet with the kids. One reporter asked her, "Why haven't you hired more staff? You're running a foundation now." Malia smiled. "Because I don't want to lead from a desk. I want to lead from the floor." One night after dinner, Malia sat with a group of teenage girls from her mentoring program. One of them raised her hand. "Auntie, were you really a maid before all this?" Malia paused, then smiled. "Still am." They blinked. She continued. "I still clean, still fold clothes, still know how to scrub sadness off a window. But now, I also own the building I clean in. So yes, I was a maid, but I never let that be my whole name." The girls clapped. Some teared up, and in that moment they didn't see a scandal or a fairy tale bride. They saw a woman who fought her way into freedom and left the door open for them to follow. The rain came gently that night, not a storm, just soft drops kissing the rooftop, as if even the sky knew it needed to be quiet. Inside their home, Elijah sat on the porch, a book in hand. The lights inside were warm, the world outside, peaceful. Then Malia stepped out. She wore a t-shirt, lounge pants, and her silver bracelet. No makeup, no performance, just her. She carried 2 mugs of tea, one with honey, she said, handing him his. Elijah smiled. "You still remember?" "I remember everything," she said softly. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence only 2 people in love could enjoy. Then, a sound, a song, playing faintly from the speaker Elijah had left on inside the living room. That song, the one she danced to barefoot all those months ago, the one that started everything. She looked at him. He looked at her. He stood slowly, held out his hand. "One last dance?" She chuckled, setting down her tea. "You always say that." "Then one more last dance." She took his hand, barefoot on the wooden porch, rain tapping the rooftop above, string lights glowing overhead. They swayed. No fancy footwork, no audience, just love, wrapped in quiet. Malia rested her head on his chest. Elijah kissed her hair. "I used to think love had to prove itself," she whispered. "And now?" he asked. "Now I know. Real love doesn't need an audience. It just needs to stay." They kept dancing. No music left. Just the rhythm of rain. And memory. The porch glowed softly, their feet bare, the world quiet. And in that stillness, they found what they had both been searching for. Not noise, not applause, not perfection, but peace. Because in the end, Malia wasn't just the maid who fell in love with a billionaire. She was the woman who showed the world that quiet doesn't mean invisible, that you don't need to shout to be strong, and you don't need a crown to be chosen. She had once scrubbed sadness off windows. Now she opened doors. And Elijah? He didn't just love her back. He built a life that made space for her light to shine. Together they rewrote the story, not with grand gestures, but with steady hands, soft words, and the courage to stay. The end. Thank you for watching the final part of a full, young billionaire walked in on his maid dancing. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment below. Like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable love stories. And remember, never underestimate someone just because the world doesn't see them. The invisible today could become someone's whole world tomorrow.